The internet is still buzzing today about Twitter's rebrand. In case you missed it, yesterday Elon Musk unveiled a new X logo to replace the famous bluebird as he follows through with a major rebranding of the social media platform.
When you look at the momentum early Twitter created, I think there's a lot of that in the bird, where it's like what it was like to be on Twitter between, 2012 to 2000, almost like leading up to the 2016 election. Then I think it became another thing after the 26 election. And I think now it's entering a new thing. And there's no quicker way to let everybody know that you're doing something new than to have a new logo. So I think it makes total sense as the company shifts that they would want a new direction and a new mark to represent that.
The X started appearing at the top of the desktop version of Twitter yesterday, but the bird still exists across the smartphone app. As for what tweets will be called when the rebranding is done, Musk said they would be called X's. It's just another in what seems to be an endless amount of changes that Musk has made since acquiring Twitter. We're joined now by branding expert and co-founder of Metaforce, Alan Adamson. Alan, did you think it was bizarre that Musk and Twitter's new CEO, Linda Yaccarino, chose to rebrand the site?
Bizarre would be a nice way to describe it. If you looked at Twitter, what was wrong with Twitter, or the challenge ahead, was making the experience better. It was recognized around the world. People knew what it was, but it was that the product was disappointing. But rather than solve the product, they decided to do X marks the spot.
Musk has already lost a ton of money on Twitter since purchasing it. Do you think erasing the company's iconic branding was smart of him if he still hopes to turn this into a money-making endeavor?
He could have probably got another $10 billion just for the trademark if he sold it. But in this case, it could be that there was no more good story for Twitter. He tried every rabbit in his hat. Nothing was working. Advertisers were fleeing. And so maybe this was about, look, forget about Twitter. Let me talk to you about my vision for the future. And I want to build this new one app that does everything. So I don't want to talk about Twitter anymore. I want to talk about the future. A lot of tech companies do that. Don't worry, we're losing a lot of money, but it will come. And, Elon has a great record of building things. SpaceX didn't need a brand because he's the only company that can put things in orbit and potentially people on the moon or Mars, rather. And same with the Tesla. So, he's a product maker. And so if he successfully does the magic of what he's promising in a year or 10 years, X will be a really common brand. But for now, he's lit a torch to everything he bought, and he's sort of starting over with a clean sheet of paper.
You mentioned that Musk is a product maker, but if you talk to some business experts, they might argue that he's not the best businessman. Do you think having someone else co-helming X will help?
Twitter probably, but he's brought in an advertising marketing person to try to get marketers back, but this will make her job like Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible. Because the more instability, the more marketers and advertisers want to say, well, I'm going to go somewhere else. So yes, there's a long history of inventors not being great at getting their invention from the lab into the market. But he's done a phenomenal job on rockets and cars. But Twitter was not a product-driven business. It was an experience-driven business. I just wrote a book, Seeing the How, which is about experiences. And managing a fluid experience, an engineering mindset doesn't always work well for that.
It also appears this new rebrand wasn't very well thought out. Microsoft and Meta own certain trademarks on the letter X, and Musk failed to get a permit before attempting to change the signage on Twitter's headquarters. As a branding expert, how could this mess have been avoided?
With a plan and with some planning and with some thought behind it, as opposed to waking up Saturday night and saying, I had a dream about this, let's do it. And, it's potentially an example of, very smart people not having guardrails and not having anyone in his orbit that can say, hey, maybe we could use X, but let's figure out how to do it right. Because you have one shot to make a good impression. It's like a movie opening. Barbie could have been the best product, but if the movie wasn't introduced correctly, it wouldn't have succeeded. So I think this is a case where not only is the core idea bad, but even worse, the drip, 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 and the homespun X. I think Big Bird on Sesame Street has more ownership of X than Twitter now does.
Thanks so much for joining us, Alan.
Thank you, Kelly. It was fun talking to you.